Maqasid Syariah in Islamic Finance, Islamic Tourism, Discovery of Values and Knowledge, IQS Islamic Quality Standard for Hotel, Application of Maqasid Syariah in Strategic Management, Fundamentals of Islamic Management, and Strategic Thinking. Also, I would say that Dr. Syariah had a lot of experience writing and researching in various field of knowledge. So, without further ado, I welcome Dr. Syariah to start this session, insyaAllah.
Thank you very much. You hear me well? You can hear very well, or I should increase the volume? Is it okay? Can hear?
Maybe a little bit higher, is it okay?
Okay, I can increase the, okay, this is the maximum.
Okay.
I
think it's okay.
Okay, yeah, make it nearer. Okay, thank you very much. You're taking over the brother. Okay, brother, thank you very much. So I think I will start. That is, my topics will be around 2 hours, yeah? So everybody should bear on me. Everybody having his own lunch and getting sleepy now, I think. Okay, now I share my slide, okay?
You can share?
Okay, can you hear can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, I will try.
Can you expand it, make it full screen?
Yes, I will do that in a few minutes. I'll give you a second.
Okay.
This is research methodology. Using from 2 hours discussion, I will try to discuss there are 7 topics here. Normally it takes us a day to discuss. If you attend research methodology class, you'll be able to go through this one by one. But anyway, I try to concise these lectures within 2 hours. So it will discuss on this problem statement, research questions, how do you formulate this. On the first part, we take about 15 minutes, and so on. Example of research proposal, we discuss on the second. This is just to give you an overview, example of research proposal. And we talk about research design, strategy, sample design, in 15 minutes. And of course, we will relax for 15 minutes to relax. I'm sure by that time you're a little bit sleepy. We try to do some resting. Perhaps you can take your cup of coffee and tea, 15 minutes. Then we proceed on the discussion of data collection, data analysis, and then research findings, and so on. This research analysis, data analysis, we focus on the PhD thesis. Of course, master's degree also the same structure. The only thing is the depth in their research. And then research finding example. I give you an example of this thesis, so easier for you to design or structure your research. And perhaps the last discussion, we talk about the thesis report, universities and industry. If you graduate from this, your study, you will be working in industry or university. We try to look a little bit on the industry, what sort of research they're doing, how they structure the research, just to give you an idea. Okay, now go to the first part, problem statement. Okay, problem statement here, first discussion. In terms of, when we talk of research process here, when we talk about research process, we should be able first to understand the types of research, method of analysis. This is important for you, so you'll be prepared what expertise you have in your background, whether you want to choose applied research or pure research, and then you go to a method of analysis. As I had mentioned in my earlier introductions before in this morning, that research could be divided into applied research, pure research, and mixture applied and pure research. Okay, when talk applied research, mostly it focuses on the problem solving. Okay, a certain problem that you're facing, whatever problem, social problem, economic problem, technological problem. Therefore, You look into the problem and then you try to solve the problem. This is applied research. Immediate problem of the finding could be addressed too. In terms of your research, basically it focuses on the theory, scientific theory, mathematical theory. Is it basically to enhance the methods of scientific method, scientific statistical method, and so on? Is it purely enhanced in terms of not directly solving the problem that you're facing, but it is focused on enhancing the theory or scientific method in as such. Okay, for example, in your mathematician background, you want to enhance certain mathematical formula in terms of enhancing the statistical analysis in terms of research. Then perhaps you go here. Then perhaps in some theory, in scientific theory regarding some method of solving some problem, then you are looking into the theoretical aspect. These are pure research. But some cases that you can combine pure and applied research. For example, the methods of mix now. Just give you an example that the COVID analysis. There are methods of what they call making projection. For example, if you look into the internet, they're making some forecasting using logistic parameters and so on. But perhaps this forecasting method and so on could be improved. Then you look into this and then you apply to real research to solve the problem in terms of COVID analysis, forecasting, and so on. These are examples. So in terms of method analysis, okay, you understand this too, yeah? Applied research, pure research, and so on. Then you should be able to choose what I would prefer to suggest that you choose the area that you're expert or you're familiar with and your background. Say it's much easier for you to proceed on your research. Okay. Then we talk of method of analysis. There are two method analysis we're going to discuss later. Just to give you an idea, there is quantitative methods and qualitative method. And of course, there are also combination of two method of analysis for your research. That is mix of qualitative and quantitative methods. So this year, at least give you some ideas, yeah? So quantitative, basically on statistical analysis, objective, and inferences. You can make inferences objectively, and qualitative basically is subjective, non-statistical analysis. You see the pattern of thinking and so on. And it's normally the inference is more subjective rather than objective. But in any case, if you combine the two, you will find that some of these qualitative methods could do some inferences, combine the two. You can make a very good inferences relating to certain your finding objectively plus subjectively. Objectively using statistical method, and also you can see the pattern of the thinking in some areas. If you do psychology, for example, our friend there, perhaps you can see the pattern of thinking. Okay, these are the methods that you should know. All right. So let us go now the subject area. That is what I call this on the first part. You are research. What I call that? Research question. Okay. That means you're going to see what are the area in the area of your research. You are going to formulate what are the problem. You should discover the problem before you formulate a certain research questions. For example, here you have to go to the problem of looking at problem and opportunities. Problems mean there are problems to be solved. Opportunities that a certain opportunities that you're able to proceed. For example, if you are an industrialist, for example, I'm working many years industrialist for more than 40 years, but I'm looking at the opportunities. How could I create the certain problem areas that I can create some business opportunities, isn't it? I mean, you are taking advantage of the situation for the benefits of the academic research as well for yourself or for industry. So for me, if I am industrialist, I am from the industrial area. Before going to academics, I will look into research problem and then or opportunities. The opportunities for me to proceed on certain areas of my interest. I would like to go. I'm on strategic management, for example. I will try to formulate a new strategy, Islamic strategy, so I can be a consultant in specialized strategic management to assist the industry, to assist the government, and so on. These are the area example. And also, here are the identified symptoms. You do not identify symptom. You should go problem. How to differentiate between symptom and problem? Okay, look at example. I just give an example. COVID-19. You're quite familiar with today. The symptoms of suffering from COVID-19. For example, the symptom is you're getting fever, you're getting cough, you're getting what do you call it, fatigue, and so on. There's so many symptoms relating to COVID-19, but you are not solving the symptom. You are not solving why is this cough, isn't it? If you focus on symptom, then you will not solve the problem. So you go to the what are you should identify what are the problem relating to this symptom. You see? So the problem is basically is due to the COVID-19 virus, isn't it? So that's why we go to what? Solving the COVID-19 virus, how to solve this problem. We go to identify what sort of vaccine that's suitable to kill this COVID-19. So that is different symptom and solve problem. Do not get involved in so many symptoms during your problem searching for opportunities and problem. So go to the how we call it, identify the problem rather than symptoms. Okay. After you go into this, of course, yes, I'm sure this morning up to this earlier, Professor Dr. Roslina had given you how to identify the problem. Perhaps you have to read literature review and what is going on in the industry. If you look at COVID-19, for example, you don't just go into the COVID, you just must look into the history of COVID-19. You must look into some areas, literature, medical research, and so on. If you go into social research, you look at the social problem in other epidemic, for example, Spanish epidemic in early 1990s and so on. So you try to go to social problem. It's different. Medical problem is different on your area of interest. Yeah, or if I am in the area, I'm looking at the many areas. For example, in COVID-19, you look at it how to assist the government. You see how the IT guy developed a system of tracking. You see, he helped the government. It helped himself to make money. He became, one guy developed IT tracking those people going around by using the IT software. So that are certain areas you can look into. Just to give you an example, actual example. Okay, after that, you had identified problem and opportunities, then you had to discuss. You go to literature review, as I mentioned earlier, and also discuss with relevant people. You have to discuss. Sometimes, for example, looking at this identification of this guy who invented this tracking system for the government of this guy, for the people going around the city and so on. So they discuss the system with the guy with expert in IT. What do you think of this? And he discussed on the people, relevant people in the industry, relevant people in the in the administration of the nation. So having views on this, you can then formulate a system of questions. You see, after discussing, identify the problem, the exploration with other people, discussing, literature review, discussion with people also, then they formulate a question. A question in how this thing happened, how we should solve the problem. And these are the basic question. Define your question. Okay. Number 2, 1, identify a problem, discuss with people, and literature review, read literature review, and then formulate a question. You see, how to collect information using transformation problem into questions. How? Okay. Then you go for exploration. Exploration again, after you identify some question, how to solve a problem, you clarifying the possible action. For example, you want to interview people, you have to discuss with people, brainstorming with expert. You have to discuss this issue. Suppose you are looking into, of course, you discuss with your supervisors, because going to for supervisors, it's better for you to discuss with some other people in the industry and expert. And then you define research question. Okay, here. So these are basically formulating research question. Research question, and give example in my later discussion. They are not only one question, it could be several questions. If you could concise it, discuss your supervisor, maybe your supervisor would like to have too many questions, reduce it through. Well, you can make it 3 or 2 questions, depend on your supervisors. Okay. So these are first step. Okay. You have any question on that? Before that, we look into this, as I mentioned, problem and opportunities. Yeah, you can see opportunity is a problem. The problem, not enough hospital is a problem. These are problem, yeah, and opportunities and so on. And then after that, you can have many area of your research that could help the industry, you see, and many other areas opportunities can enhance from your outcome of your research. You could look at here, don't go for symptom. The system does not really help you in any way. But you go to problem, due to COVID-19, there's so many problems arising here. Example, and this problem, of course, you have to do some research in terms of the accommodation, the social problem, financial problem, and so on. And this give opportunities in this area. Okay, just give you an example. You see, a very small, very short 1 year opportunities arise for businessmen for when I do some research on this. Okay. Now let us go for the second part. Okay. Research proposal. After you have identified the problem, then you read the literature review, then you discuss with people around you, experts, and then you formulate questions. You formulate a question, then you discuss again, and then you finally formulate a question. So the second part now is how to research proposal, how to submit a research proposal. But in some areas, research question, when we look at some, proposal, as mentioned by Professor Dr. Dr. Jamil in US, they need one third of your thesis. Mean to say you have to go through all this process, understand clearly, then you come out with your research. You test your your research finding. You have to test your methodology. Then only you proceed. Like certain university in America, but in certain university, they just like to ask you how you're going to go about it. You see, I'll give you an example later on. Just 1 or 2 pages. That means you understand what you're trying to do. Then you're able to proceed your research more systematically, and it just give you a directive. Research proposal is basically give you a mapping. You map out what you're going to work, what you're going to do. We will discuss later. Okay. When you come just now, research questions, okay, you submit research questions for discussing, and you revise, You reject, you go on. And then you accepted develop research proposal. This question is important. You have to discuss with your supervisors, okay? Supervisor may ask you how you reach this, this situation or question. You must have a basis. You're going to literature review. You're going to discussion with relevant people before you define these questions. You have also clarifying people possible action, method of interviewing, discussion, interviewing, and brainstorming. You have to discuss with supervisors to convince your supervisors that your research proposal you're going to formulate is very concrete, or you have ideas what to do. Even you have to write 3 pages, but if you have to write 1/3 of the research thesis in America, then you have to go detail. But detail the same problem here. Interview, discussion. This interview mean method of interviewing of people and so on. Okay. Now research proposal. Yes, submitted, revised. Then decision, discuss again. And then after your supervisors accepted your research proposal, then you're talking of detail executing your research design. Okay, research proposal, I'll give you example later. Okay, now we discuss on research proposal. Okay, we've gone about 15 minutes. Another 15 minutes, we stop for discussion. Okay, research design and sample design. It's important to know this again, okay? Because this related to method of quantity method of your research method, relating to that. Okay. Also, you must understand that you need some knowledge of research methodology to analyze your research. Okay. This is an example of research proposal. I mentioned research proposal, yes. Research design, this example. Okay. This example depends on university. This example, it gives you about 4, 5, 6 pages. You see? Not 1/3 of your. In America, they won't give you very detailed. Okay. This one example depend on the university, the structure. This is one of the university which example. For example, introduction, you talk of background of study. Suppose you're doing Islamic banking, your problem statement, an objective of the study, a research question, research hypothesis, significance of study, and all this is what I call it operation. I'm talking the operation. Sorry, spelling mistake. Yeah, and you talk of the literature review. This give an example of the whole thing. You discuss literature review here in more detail, and because these are 2 important areas why you have this special subject, special chapter, because later on the examiner or the supervisors are looking into these 2 areas. So you have to elaborate further in your research proposal. Literature review, you have to detail it out, as been mentioned by Dr. Roslina earlier, and it also covered research methodology in this case. And also research methodology, you cover literature review, you also covered other people using your research method, other methods which you are recommending, okay? And then you should discuss also this quality research method and quantity research method, why you choose a certain method for analysis, why you combine the 2. You have to discuss here, okay? This is basically proposal, and of course you have references, appendix in your proposal. Okay, it depends on university, but basically the structure is like this. You have introduction, you have literature review, you have research methodology. All right. Okay, next question. For this, we break 3 minutes.
Any participant have question?
Yes, anybody question? Well,
moving on to another topic.
If any question or anything to that before we proceed, just to give me a cup of water. We talked for 1 hour and 2 hours. Okay, anything? Okay. When talk of problem statement in this research proposal, of course, you don't elaborate further, but if you've done much literature review, you have identified sure of the problem. This problem statement could be a summary of your detailed thesis because you know what you're doing and you discuss with your supervisors. You're already prepared for it. Just for example, Dr. Rosnas mentioned earlier, if you are not thorough with your literature review, then you may find problem. But if you're thorough literature review, you have identified your area of research, you can concise your problem statement and you can make your supervisor you really understand, you make a summary. So this year, for example, the integration of knowledge to address issue of bringing gap closer, you identify certain problem. You have making your area of research finding problem. You have summarized it in terms of tables, matrix table. I mean to say, if you a student able to summarize what the problems are, they have done extension of their research review. Have they done a lot of reading so that they have identified the problem and they are able to summarize the problem. You see, this is what I understand. The issues in this area on the study. Okay, these are you can see here, the problem statements. We summarize in one area, and then you can summarize it, in this case, issues. And then you can even summarize your research question, research, objective, and so on from here. Either you done research question or research objective. So these are example, okay? These are the real example. Let's make it. Okay, these are you need to identify the question and research objective. It is interrelated here. Research question 1 to answer research objective and so on. See, why is able to summarize like this? That means you really understand what is your question, what are the objective of research being formulated from this question. They are interrelated. If you do this way, it's much easier for the supervisor to understand. When you put your detailed thesis, you also mention about this, and you are elaborating further on this, so that way you understand where are you heading. Okay, this example, if you choose, for example, you choose qualitative and quantitative research, you can give a summary in terms of like this. Easier for you, easier for the supervisors to understand. That means you really understand the whole thing. You can put into words, but for your proposal, I think, to me, I would rather refer the student to come out of his interrelated work, or what model he's using and so on, and give a summary. So that means he understands what he's doing. For example, he wants to do qualitative research on this perception of maqasid al-SHAAYA in terms of strategic management. He able to understand this. He is able to understand the strategic formulation, the whole thing. And then he able to do some qualitative research on certain area of this, because so many areas that he identified certain areas. So the result is combination of the two, that he understood the method, he understood how to solve the problem. Okay. Example research. This is an example of applied research. Okay. As you mentioned, important the applied research is in terms of Islamic quality, for you to see the problem I mentioned earlier in hospitality industry. There's so many problems. You understand the hospitality industry as a whole, then you'll be able to understand the problem. Where are the problems? Where are the integration of knowledge has to be integrated in this area? Because all this level of hospitality global value, standard, are not according to Sharia. There are need for improvement in this area. Just to give an example, just one area of research. There are method, social problem, industrial problem, all these are areas. They are basically secular in nature. Nothing about Islam is being incorporated in their in development and so on. Okay. So here, for example, when we talk of accommodation here, the student have done some research on this. When the accommodation developed Islamic quality standard of management of hotel. Another student had developed into travel agent. Another student now developed in terms of how to, what do you call that, tourist attraction for Muslim in the nation. They focus on that. They're doing PhD on this. You see, all this research, the combination of what I have mentioned earlier, Sharia, research methodology, process of getting information, and then booking a proposal, and then come up proposal of research. Okay, and that has gone 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to what research design strategy. Okay, 10 minutes. You want to tolerate or you want to ask questions before we go to discussion 3?
May I ask you, Professor?
Yes, sure, please.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, Professor.
Alaikum salam.
This is Sayyid Ahmed from Algeria, currently trying to, in the process of doing my proposal for PhD proposal.
Yes.
Islamic studies. You did mention about the problem, the question.
Yes, problem. Yeah.
And you did mention as well that each objective need to be each objective basically answering a question. Is that right?
Yes, objective research questions, then research objective.
All right. So in a normal cases, yes, this one, yeah, research objective, research question. In a normal cases of PhD thesis,
Yes.
Do we have like a standard of 3-4 question, or it depend really on the thesis, on the topic itself?
Okay. When we talk of research questions and research objective, right?
Yes.
When you have identified your research questions, then you formulate your research objective.
Yes.
For some cases, they formulate research objective and research question. And you can see some of the student or the researcher, they formulate a lot of research questions, maybe 10, maybe 13, you see?
Yes.
And then they come out with research question. To me, I would rather prefer the case that they confine to 3 to 4 research question and research objective. If too many objective and question, it may be one side is difficult for your student, and it's also difficult for the supervisor to look into detail. To me, okay, because you should be able to summarize your research question into a summary question. It can be, for example, the research question: how insurance scholars and professional managers positive monitoring. It could be many other areas, isn't it? Many other questions to arise. Why not you just combine the two questions into one? Then you'll be able to answer your research here, objective research. You see, so depend on universities, but most universities, I did not know and look at through all those things. They don't really making like a format that you must come out with 13 or 10, 3 questions. No, it depends on your supervisor.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor.
Yes. Be friendly, your supervisors.
Yeah.
And they don't worry. You can put ideas to your supervisor. They just say 13 question. If you're able to justify your proposal, then I'm sure the supervisor will listen to you, because this is your research. Supervisor is just supervising you to do a proper, good research. Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Wherever you want to make suggestion to your supervisor, make sure you are well read, you have covered, and you're able to put your case across. Even the method of analysis. You see, you came out a certain method is not being utilized in the area, but it has been utilized in the area, but not in your field. But you can justify the use of it. Then it's okay. Okay.
Yes.
That is, you have done some research on the area, and you have done some literature review. People using your model, and you're going to adapt this model in your research. It's okay for me. Okay.
Prof, if I may ask another question, is that
Yeah.
possible?
Yes, please.
Regarding literary review in Islamic studies, sometimes some research tend to study a particular work of a scholar,
Yes.
Abi Hamza Ghazali or Razi, whoever. So basically, they conduct a question relying on one work or two work of that particular scholar.
Yeah.
In this kind of research, when we talk about literary review,
Yes.
which one you prefer, Prof? Is to basically start with reading the work without any influence from literary review or other perspective of researcher, or you should read what other wrote about this particular work and then go to the work itself?
Okay.
All right.
That's a good question. Okay. For me, yeah, I'm very open, and also your question itself, I have been also put forward to my supervisor before when I did my PhD.
Yeah.
I have some reservation when I look into some research finding. I mean, research from literature review. It came out a certain model, and then the other guy will come out simple model. And I have some reservation on his model. I have some reservation on his inferences, but I make some suggestion. I mean, objective, not criticism, but reservation on the idea. That is why I said I want to do further research. You see, that is okay. For example, you do a certain area. For example, you are doing psychology, isn't it? I'm not sure. Whatever it is, you found out some doing research integration of knowledge in psychology. There's not much people doing that, maybe one or two, but you have some reservation on the finding, and then you are putting some reservation, and you say that the reason that I would like to do some research, further research, to identify further the validity of the finding. That's okay. You cannot. To me, you don't accept as it is. You must be some when literature review, read through the literature review, and you have some you also should be critical on certain area. Even the method used also you should be critical on the area. It's okay because it's for the research. You see, they are no ending to it. It's just dynamic itself for further improvement. Yeah. That is okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can, if you do some reading, you found out certain cases, do not worry, discuss with your supervisor what is the reservation you have on this finding or research review, and then what sort of area that you want to look into in your research. Okay? Okay, these are, okay, now we go towards the research design strategy. Okay, number 3. Okay, when we talk about research design strategy, okay, yeah, this is very important. You must have determined the type of research, the purpose of research, the time dimension you want to do. I'm sure that you must have, doing some research, there's certain time dimension. For example, you do your PhD, you must have some time dimension, how long you want to do this research. In your research design, you must have some time dimension. Even in business, they were interested, time is mean money, so they must look into this. Even you yourself, you're not going to do your time research design longer than more than 3 years, more than 4 years. The scope of study, it must be defined, it must interrelated, the time dimension. If your scope is too big, too large, how are you going to complete the research strategy within the time dimension you formulate in the environment and so on. This basically all this research design related to data collection, sampling design. These two important areas that determine your design strategy. Sampling design, time dimension, scope. You cannot do sampling design the whole country perhaps. You must do case study within the area. Time dimension, collecting design is related to time dimension and so on, type of collection. And then after you do pilot testing to make sure that your questionnaire, your instrument using is relevant. And then perhaps then you could further improve your collection design and that research instrument and so on. Okay. When I talk of research design, okay, I talk of design strategy. When you look here, design strategy, to me, when we are making as a Muslim student, whatever who they are, in terms of making research, what are the overriding strategy? That means, what are your overriding strategy? That means the ultimate research design you're going to do. For me, I always say that overriding strategy for this, can you see on the right here? Can you see on the right of the notes on the right? Can you read it? You can see, isn't it? Overriding. You can, yeah? You can, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, because on my side, it is blocked by this your photos. But anyway, when you talk overriding strategy, you must bear in mind the maqasid al-Sharia is your ultimate objective, overriding strategy. What it means, I did mention in earlier discussion, isn't it? Maqasid al-Sharia is to protect our religion, to protect life, to protect intellect, to protect our offspring, protect our wealth and okay. So your overriding objective when you choose a certain subject, when into integration of knowledge, Islam and other conventional, that you must make sure that your overriding strategy, you must bear in mind protection of religion. Maqasid al-Sharia. Maqasid al-Sharia means maqasid is ultimate objective. Sharia is the way of life we are today. Okay, I mean you must fulfilling not against this 5 principles of maqasid al-Sharia. That is overriding objective. You must keep in your mind what we choose. If we choose maqasid al-Sharia, you mentioned this clearly because in knowledge, then I think is okay. For example, you are talking about your in the area of psychology that you're going to protect the intellectual minds. One of objective of Sharia to develop minds and so on, protection of life and so on. Problem we are facing that day is okay. You have to mention that. Okay. When you have in this mind as your overriding objective, all your type, purpose, time, dimension, scope, and environment of your design strategy is a tactical strategy that means to fulfill all these things. Okay? The type of research you choose is to fulfill your maqasid al-Sharia objective, to protect your religion, to protect intellectual, to protect human life, to protect offspring, to protect wealth of the nation and so on. So, for the purpose, of course, you mentioned type and purpose interrelating time dimension, what you're going to do about it, scope, your scope area, and so on. Okay? That is, they call it tactical strategy. Okay? And these two important, you understand, that will focus and give direction what sort of research you want to do and what sort of design you want to do. Yeah? Okay. So here when we look into two areas of the most important thing in this one, after you decided your the design strategy. Then you talk sampling design. Sampling design, I will discuss the next table. And you're talking about data collection design. The two important elements here to choose. And then you choose for pilot testing the method you use here. Okay? And then, of course, you go for research instrument, the detail, getting information. All right. Now look at it here. Okay. As we have mentioned earlier, the research design here, it gives you a detail of this dimension, type of research, because type of research, I had mentioned earlier that the qualitative, quantitative, a combination of two. You have understand that, what it means for qualitative, quantitative, then you make a choice type of research you want to do, you see, or you have a combination, you see, or you want to do some literature, or what you call that, based on bibliography study and so on. This depends on the two. And the purpose of your study need to be defined. What you're concerning about find, what, where, when, and so on. This is the purpose of research, okay? Descriptive for studies, casual studies, and then the choose of variable and so on have to be defined. And then cross-sectional study, whether you want to do cross-sectional study, mean study carried out once, or represent a snapshot of certain point of time. Or this is longitudinal study, when you do some biological research, biometry, and so on, medical research, they also to do some longitudinal study. I mean, that it's been repeated to many points. This is normally done in industrial research or other business research, the change of mind, the change of perception, the change of taste, and so on. This I give you the whole scenario of research. Okay, in your PhD study, as mentioned, you should be focused. Okay, these are giving you the whole scenario of the research design strategy. If you are working in the government or working industry, you're looking into this sort of variable. When you go for research study, we have already combined a certain format, which I mentioned earlier. It just gives you some ideas, expose your mind to certain area. Okay? Okay. Then you look into back to our statistical strategy in your research proposal as far as PhD and master's research. Then we look into qualitative and quantitative research. Okay? In the common purpose, of course, the test of hypothesis in quantitative research. Test hypothesis of specific research questions, okay? And then this qualitative, discover ideas with general research objective. For example, the ideas, whether the ideas of certain perception has changed. So the perception changed. Normally, when you look into qualitative, qualitative methods, you see the pattern of changes in certain people's attitude, for example. They can be assessed to here. Okay? Now, we discover ideas in general research objective. Well, general research objective, you have some ideas, discover the ideas of changes, observe and interpret. You observe and interpret. What do you observe? When you, I don't know, in psychologists, whether you're dealing with patient, you're dealing with certain subject matters that you need to making an observation, interaction, you see. For example, you interpret from observation. And this observation, for example, is a perception of, certain, you look at certain ideas of certain thinkers, yeah? Their perception from time to time, is it environmentally, or rather the environment surrounding them has changed their perception? You make some study. This can be objective. It can be qualitative in that sense, okay? For example, when I did some research on the observation about Sharia scholars and professional managers. I want to see the perception relating to maqasid al-Sharia. what they understand relating to management. So how are I going to assess now? The two methods I assess through the qualitative, in the sense that I read the article written by the scholars and the managers, written in journal and books. And this article, when I just take 20 articles, and then I select 5 randomly to be more scientific. I took five books, 10 books, 20 books, and make some sampling, and then I use content analysis to study their thinking. This example, I'll give you later the example in this stage. I'm just giving you the ideas. Okay. Normally, the qualitative unstructured. Quantitative is more structured, you see, in their way. And also research is intimately involved. Result are subjective. Normally, result is subjective, but you can make it objective. Now, the development of content analysis that can be able to transform certain perception into frequency, that you'll be able to formulate some statistical analysis. There are development of methods. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the method of research is also developed in certain areas. Okay, researcher and involved, observe, result are objective. Meant to say, you're not involved yourself in this area. This subject is more objective. Okay, the sample design, normally that sample to postulate generalized result, and this small sample often in natural setting and so on. This is just giving you an example of all those different between the two. You see, here this example. Of course, you can look into the internet. There's so many examples different to show, but this is giving you a summary of the main differences between qualitative and quantitative. Okay, just to give you the map towards research, your understanding of the subject. Okay, you can see areas of qualitative research. You can go into the internet, many things now. You don't even in this. I gathered it from the books, you see, and then some of the research book, and then this theoretic analysis, content analysis. Did not mention this, but I put it here because the development in this area into this area is now getting popular. If you do research, I think my friend just now, brother, Nigeria, you think, what do you call that, psychological research, yeah? You can see that many are using these methods, yeah, in terms of assessing the psychological development, yeah? Okay, you can go into this. For this short time, I couldn't give you detail, but I give you the idea how to go about searching. Just give you the map so that you're able to direct your destination to this area. Okay. And then I did mention earlier, yeah, that is the development of thematic analysis, content analysis. You can see that here, you see, qualifying, the two methods, yeah, thematic analysis, make a summary of that, the content analysis, which when I do my research on qualitative research, I make use content analysis. The reason behind it, the content analysis able to transform a certain pattern of your finding into frequency. This way. I just do the frequencies, I change the method into certain thing. I brief my supervisor, yes, okay, because the way it should be developed anyway. So, this method is okay. Any more questions to that?
Is there any question from participant before Doctor proceed to another topic?
Sample design.
This is for quantitative or qualitative before?
This is quantitative research.
Quantitative. I think that's the
yes.
Usually most question will go to quantitative.
Okay. Okay. Now we talk of quantitative research, yeah. sampling design. As you hear sampling design here, the qualitative research is basically, as you can see, is more objective and more statistical in nature and more scientific in nature. You look at the sampling design, okay? The sampling design consisting of probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is a scientific, what I call sampling, okay? Non-probability is non-scientific sampling, but it is commonly used in business, okay? In business, this is commonly used in what I call that, in your research, in medical research, technological research, because it's scientific. This is semi-scientific, I'm recording, okay? It involves judgment, okay? But in research of this qualitative research, you can combine the two. For example, you're going to have the idea of to support your research in terms of economic research, to support your idea with certain variable relating to prices, for example, okay? That you can't do this because sampling prices, you don't have a frame. That means you just continue having your own quota method of getting some information from the industry. For example, you want to know the price of, for example, the price of certain product, you see, from the two groups, the female and the male consumer. You just say to your interviewer, I want 20 samples from here, 20 samples from here. Just interview the two groups. You don't have a sampling frame. What you have to do is, you just say, if you meet every 5 people on the street, every 5 you select one. Just whatever you want to get the information. And this is called non-probability sampling. They don't have the element of randomness here, you see. But the way they're collecting is very structured. The questionnaire is very structured, and then it can be easily analyzed, and it can be easily produced a statistical format, statistical finding, and so on, similar to that. Okay, probability sampling. You can see the word randomness here. Simple random, complex random. What it means random. When you talk randomness, probability, I mean everyone in the group is given a chance of being selected for interview or for your case study. So mean to say, it is scientific in that sense. The choice of the sample is random because everybody is giving the chances. Okay, the simple random is just if you have a small group or small frame of people, you can choose. But in cases of study, they are so complex. So you must use some systematic, cluster, stratified, and double. You can see that in the research methodology. Giving you an example, if you're going to interview, interview a certain perception of social perception among the community. We are doing some social research, for example. There are big communities. Say that your area or community, say about one village, for example. You're not going to get the list of all those villages in the area to do simple random. What you have to do is you cluster them. How do you cluster them? What you do is you cluster them into blocks. Block A, block B, block C, small block. Remember, the whole village can be clustered or can be blocked into 10 blocks, 20 blocks. Okay. Then from the block, you select the block. Say 20 block, you take randomly, you want to do 2 blocks. So you select randomly 2 blocks. or cluster. Then you interview the whole block, you see, of the selected block. So what that means, cluster. Okay. What about systematic? Systematic means, just for example, you want to interview, how do you go about it? Systematic means you put the element of system into your subject matter. Okay. For example, you want to do some environmental study of the waste product, which I give example later. You cannot have all the what they call that waste product now to gather it and to take a sample. What you have to do is you stop every 5 lorries or 10 lorries systematically. Mean how to choose it. Okay, you have a line. You say that you make a random sampling. You say that you select number three. So every 3 lorries that you need to stop, that is systematic random. Then you interview the lorries, drivers, whatever it is. The basic principle is random. What do you call it? You determine the systematics of the people you're going to do by randomness. Every 3 people you're going to interview. Every 5 people you select number 5, for example. So every 5, you're going to do. That is, you have the element of randomness. Stratified here means you stratified through the subject matter. For example, the systematic, the area coming from the industrial area, the coming from the household area, and this you stratified them. These are method of double stratified, double systematic, all these are put into this. You can get better idea. You look into this what I call data collection method for sampling. Yeah, and this to discuss this in detail may take few hours. Okay, just to give an example. Remember that. Just remember the 2 probability sampling. It must be random. You see, your sample must be random and scientific. And this, in certain area of economic or business study, there are non-probability sampling, these are main areas you can find in the book or in your research. Non-probability and probability sampling. You have to define 2 areas, okay? In your method of collection, in your thesis, you have to define. You have to mention because it related to your finding of your research. Okay. Now, as I had mentioned just now, that just to recall back what I have mentioned, market survey just now, okay? Market survey, this is commercial survey, this is a field survey. This is an example of a research on the environmental research on the most municipal solid waste. You see, I want to determine how many, the content of the waste in this area, okay? So that my research purposely, I want to know this, I want to create a business of my own. Okay, this is my PhD research. This is market survey, data sampling, this research method. You are trying to determine the content of rubbish. They can make money on this. And this is an area where not many people want to do. But as you know that from rubbish, we can make money out of that. Okay? There's so many rubbish being disposed. It's not being recycled. The problem of environmental problem, toxic waste problem, and so many problems in industry. So, but research has to be carried out to do this. Okay. As I had mentioned earlier, that when you do research, because I'm from the industry, many years industry, what I would do in a sense opportunities. The problem create opportunities. What the opportunities in terms of solving the problem as well as develop the industry in this area. And you can participate in industries. You see, for example, the dengue problem in Malaysia, my neighbor, my one PhD researcher, they did how to overcome dengue, jinted, and there he's a millionaire. My neighbor who did research on oil palm, he did how to turn oil palm into diesel, oil palm to diesel, and he did that PhD research. I'm sure he's well known now. He owned a, what do you call that, getting the pattern of the usage of oil palm as diesel. In case the oil palm diesel is getting expensive, the alternative is oil palm. Oil palm you can grow, diesel you can't grow. Okay, here's an example. Yeah, research giving opportunities. Okay, these are the probability sampling technique you can find from the research. What I mentioned, description, advantage, systematic, certified, and so on. How you have a slide. Excuse me, you can look into the detail. Okay. Now, before we go to next, just give a summary of what I have said earlier, that you have to determine sampling design. Basically, important is the qualitative research and quantitative research. And this qualitative research, there are ways of getting information different, way of analysis is different. Then we talk of qualitative, quantitative are different, quantitative, I mentioned earlier, the data collection are different, and see two different areas that you need to understand. Here is more statistical, more scientific, depending on your background and so on. Okay, now we stop for 50 minutes as promised before we go for data collection. And then we have covered 1, 2, 3. Now 4, 5, 6. Is there any question? Are we going to break? We're going to break now.
So any participant have question before we go to short break?
Yes. Oh, the participant has gone for the break. They break earlier.
You are the one that need the break.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. Sorry, actually, I'm not sure whether you are going to discuss about the sample size, because
Yes.
since you are already discussed about the sampling,
Yes.
sample collection method. So how about the sample size?
Well,
How can we determine this enough sample size for a particular study?
okay. When we talk of sample size, when normally in terms of your what relate to your PhD or masters, all right, master research, you have limited times, and your data collection is also limited. Normally, you go for case study rather to have a very big sample. Normally, in sample design, big sample design is covering when the sample, what called the subject matter is very small in size. For example, what I call that is certain observation in terms of research in biometry. You study the culture of certain behavior of certain virus, very small and simple. But when you're talking about testing the sample in the whole COVID-19 antibodies, for example, you don't define the sample how big size. Some are testing 100 over 1,000, 200,000 over 10, and so on. You see, because there's no definite percentage of sample design in that case. As far as I know, as far as research, real research is depend on how you covers your population by proper stratifying the population, stratified it in accordingly, and then the size is normally not really what determine research. So much so that they will put on as a case study. Yes, that is my observation. Of course, when you look at statistical analysis, there are certain percentage of number of the sample design if you have a sampling frame. For example, sampling frame, you're going to design, I don't know, a small sampling frame. You want to talk about the school in the sampling frame in the one school, just one school. You cannot generalize every school. Okay, one school, you're making a study, the population is 200 people. Okay, then you can determine the proper sampling size on that. And you can even test the reliability of your sample design, the number, so that depend on the situation again. Okay, that's a big observed. As per as PhD concerned, you always talk about the case study of this, case study of two. You cannot generalize the overall situation. Then you, from the case study, you make an inference, and then you go further study again, because your time is limited. Okay, that is my one observation. Okay, any other question?
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, waalaikumsalam.
Prof, I want to ask if, for example,
Yes.
If I make research about organization,
Yes.
which has branches in all states. For example, here in Malaysia, we have 14 states, so we have 14 branches.
Okay.
And each branch has its own independency and enactment. Okay.
Yes.
So the question is, must to take them all as sample, or I have to choose only one branch as a case study, or compare between two branches is enough?
Okay. What?
Knowing, excuse me, Prof, knowing that each branch has 5, 10 employees, so I concerned about the responses.
Okay. What is your what do you call objective? Objective for your research.
Okay, this for example, this organization has many problems, so cannot get their objectives. So I want to study why this problem is happen.
Okay. If you have time, if you can, okay, so there are 14 branches, you say? 14, isn't it? Okay.
Yes.
14 branches in Malaysia. I think if you're able to reach this 14 organization, that would be better if you have, because you can study the differences, significant differences between all these branches. Okay. If you can get information by, I don't know, by you're going to do by what? By interview or by what?
Survey.
By email.
Survey.
Survey. Okay.
Yes.
You can, by survey, you can send all this to 14 people, to 14 industry, 14 branches. Okay? 14 branches. See what their response is. How many responded? 20, 30? If 20%, 50%, then you can, if you can't get the other percentage, you can analyze the 50%. Just give you an example. My friend who did on a PhD in the UK, he was doing PhD on the reporting system of the Islamic finance. So he sent most of these questionnaire to many Islamic banks, even Malaysia, Indonesia, but he received a very small number from the. He sent, I think, of 50. He just received 10 or 5. But with the 5 or 10, he is able to make some analysis outcome of the sample. You see, and is accepted. You know? So what I suggest that you can now is very simple using questionnaire, isn't it? You just send it to all over them and see the response. For example, I have my friend in Turkey. He did some survey. He just sent a questionnaire to me and give me few about 10. Please send it to others institutions. So I did send, and he received 3 response. He proceed on with the 3. Yes. Okay, I think it's okay. Just send 10 of them and get the response. Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Then you can make some analysis, statistical analysis, the significance in between 3 branches, 40 branches, where is there any common, what do you call it, objective or common outcome of that, and then you can make some inference postulate to others. That is the purpose of self-empiric inference based on the 3 or 4 case study. Okay, I think it's okay. To me, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Dr. Shaya, maybe we have short break first. How many minutes?
And now is we have another 1, 2, 3, three subjects. So I think we can get 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. I think we go back 3:30. Okay.
Okay, right. 3:30. Okay, fine.
Hello, Prof.
Yes.